What's going on, everybody? It's the FF Mediators, and we're coming in with our top 12 Dynasty tight ends. Just want to let you know for the start of this video, the top three tight ends are pretty much with consensus. After that, it's going to get a little bit interesting because we have some disagreement, but this does not include the 2025 rookie class. So, Tyler, why don't you get us started with the tight end one overall?
Yeah, no surprise here. That's going to be Brock Bowers from the Raiders. He had an outstanding, record-breaking, actually, rookie season. He had 112 receptions for 1,194 yards, breaking Mike Ditka's record from 1961. Um, he's he's an animal, man. The only concern that I have with him is some quarterback issues, but he's proven that this year that really doesn't affect him that much. He did whatever he wanted. And he's the number one target on the team. So give me the 22-year-old. If you can buy him at this point, it's going to be expensive, but I'd give it a shot. You may have the next Kelsey on your hands.
Yeah, Bowers is going to be a generational tight end dynasty asset going forward. Not much to add there, but I'm not too worried about the quarterback situation. So let's jump into our tight end two, and that's going to be Trey McBride of the Arizona Cardinals. Had 111 catches this year, which was second among tight ends. Also had 139 targets, which was second among tight ends as well. If he can just get in the end zone, that's going to really change his outlook going forward. Trey McBride is going to be a heck of an asset on any PPR or tight end premium league.
Yeah, Trey McBride's a heck of a player. I was known to be a little down on Trey McBride coming out of college, but he has certainly proven me wrong. The dude can flat play. If he just like Matt said, if he gets in the end zone, it's going to be crazy the numbers he puts up. Now that moves me to our third tight end, which is Sam Laporta. Laporta had some nagging injuries earlier in the year that sort of bothered him a little bit, and I think kept his production down somewhat. But over the course of the season, it got better and better. By the last 5 weeks, he had really, really improved. This guy's a phenomenal talent. He's young. He had a heck of a play in the divisional playoff round with a touchdown catch. I mean, he's a phenomenal athlete, and I just look for him to get even better in this high-flying offense.
Yeah, for sure. Laporta, he had that crazy year last year with all those touchdowns and stuff, and he kind of regressed a little bit this year, whether that was off the back of injuries, like you said, or maybe they just spread the ball around a little bit more this year. But he's definitely, like we said, consensus three for us. So somebody definitely not to overlook there. Consensus ranking number 4 for us was TJ Hawkinson from the Vikings. Now, he did just come back from an ACL injury, second half of the year, so he was still kind of getting worked in. And we were dealing with a Sam Darnold-led offense that really targeted Justin Jefferson as they should, but also Jordan Addison. So he was kind of playing third fiddle here as far as the target pecking order came out. So we'll have to see where he goes from here, but he is still a young, athletic tight end. As long as his knee does not give him any trouble in the future, I think his target share in the offense will only continue to get back to what it used to be.
Yeah, I really like Hawk moving forward too. I know there's a little bit of a scare with what's going to happen with Sam Darnold and whether JJ McCarthy is going to be able to lead this offense. I do think he'll be able to do that. I was high on JJ coming into the draft, but as it stands for Hawkinson, he's 27. He was really, really involved in this offense as soon as he came back. He missed half the year, but going forward, he should be a stable dynasty tight end for you. But let's jump into our fifth one here, which is going to be Tucker Kraft. We had a little bit of a disagreement here on our rankings, but Tucker Kraft comes in at number 5. The young tight end is going to be able to build with Jordan Love going forward. He was 20th in targets, but he got in the end zone. He was 4th among tight ends and touchdowns. So that's going to be the big question going forward. We have Christian Watson, who tore his ACL to end out the year, so there might be some vacated targets there that he can take advantage of. But that's going to do it for me. I think it's Tucker Kraft at the 5. Coach, I think you had a little bit of a disagreement here, don't you think?
Yeah, I mean, the concern with Tucker Kraft for me is the way the offense shares the ball around. Like, they don't really focus on the tight ends a ton. I do think he's a top 5 talent. So there's that. And Jordan Love, he did not play well down the stretch, and I think that's a bit of a concern. But Kraft definitely has the talent to be there. So that moves me to tight end 6, where I had a little bit of a disagreement with, but our consensus tight end 6 is Mark Andrews. Mark Andrews' age is a bit of a concern to me. He's 29, but at the same time, he is steady and he finds a way to produce. Early in the season, he was really bad, and everybody was giving up on Mark Andrews. And as the year progressed down the stretch, he came through, had solid games. Isaiah likely is snaking a little bit of that, but at the same time, Andrews just finds a way to produce. And as long as he continues to do that, he'll continue to have a major impact in the tight end fantasy world.
Yeah, I agree there. Like we said, after the first three, we kind of all had a little bit of disagreements, but I feel like that's everybody. And that even ties in with Mark Andrews here. People were, like Coach said, selling him off early in the season because they thought likely was going to take over. And Andrews proved that he still has a place on this team and a role in the offense, with Lamar Jackson there. So I think until, they either move on from him like in a statement or a trade or something like that, I think he'll be part of the team just as Kelsey is with the Chiefs. He'll be just as important. And then our tight end 7 here in consensus is Dalton Kincaid of the Bills. Now, granted, Dalton Kincaid did not have a great season this year, but for me, this is a little bit more about situation. He does have, Josh Allen as his quarterback. As far as targets go and target competition, he's really, to me, only dealing with Khalil Shakir. I'm not really worried about Keon Coleman personally. I feel like he's probably the second best pass catcher on the team. The only issue is Josh Allen doesn't like to throw him the ball for some reason. So, the youth, maybe there's a little bit of discord there between the two of them, a little bit of disconnection or anything like that. But I think that connection will grow. I think the Bills have seen what Travis Kelce has done to them for several years, and they're trying to emulate that with Kincaid. So I think they'll end up getting it figured out, and that's why I have him here at 7.
Yeah, you mentioned it. Kincaid's interesting just given the fact that Josh Allen doesn't really fixate on him as a target. You mentioned it being a down year. He missed some time with injury. But even when it was just Dawson Knox before Kincaid got there, Josh Allen still didn't really focus on the tight end too much. So he's young, he's athletic, and he's tied to a good quarterback. So the value is in that part of him. But we'll just have to see if the play on the field can match up with that going forward. But for number 8 here, guys, I'm going to jump to David Njoku of the Cleveland Browns. He's not great at anything, but he's pretty good at everything. If the Browns can just get a quarterback, I think there's going to be an uptick in David Njoku's usage. But for now, he just remains a steady force, and that's kind of what we need at the tight end position.
Yeah, man. I'm a fan of David Njoku. He went to Miami. I'm always a fan of the Hurricane guys, but he's a good player. In the quarterback situation, like Matt said, is a concern. There's no denying that. But he gets a steady quarterback, I think he'll be even better. So it moves us to tight end 9, where right here we have George Kittle. George Kittle's age would be the concern. He's 31. But George Kittle was tight end 3 on the season in PPR. The guy just produces. He's one heck of a football player. He's tough. He finds a way to get in the end zone repeatedly. He's such a big part of this offense. When Kittle stays healthy, he always finds a way to have big production. We do think George Kittle is going to be a solid producer for the next 2 to 3 years, which in our minds puts him in the top 10 when it comes to tight ends.
Yeah, I think the key word you said there, in your analysis of him was the injuries, man. Like Kittle, it seems like this year especially has been really the only season I can think of that he didn't miss a lot of time with injuries. It seems like every year before now, it's always 1 or 2 different injuries a year that holds him out of the games. And I think he took big advantage of Brandon Ayuk being gone. In the past few years here when they've had Brock Purdy, once we see one of those main targets in either Debo or Ayuk go down, typically Kittle steps up and, he performs in that role really well, with Ayuk missing a lot of the time with the injury from earlier in the season, and Debo kind of going ghost on us, really. Somebody had to fill that role, and I think that's where George Kittle kind of stepped in. Me personally, with the age and the injury concerns that I've had for him for several years now. This is probably a sell for me. But he's a stable asset. Like we said, like he's stable enough with production that you have to have him in the top 12 because really we don't have that many. With that being said, I think another stable guy that we're going to put here at 10 is Evan Ingram. Between him and Kittle, it's kind of the same archetype. It's the older guy, the older vet that in the offense, he has a good role. He has a good target share, especially whenever Trev is playing. So I think once Trevor Lawrence comes back, we'll see what this team does as far as coaching and everything else. But I think Evan Ingram's still going to be a focal point, even with Brian Thomas Jr. and everybody else still there. So I would take the targets with Ingram, even his age. I would still take the shot there much more than maybe Kittle, in my opinion.
Yeah, even with the inconsistency of quarterback in Jacksonville, I think Trevor Lawrence will add some stability to that. I've been known as the Trevor Lawrence truther, but he's definitely better than Mac Jones. I don't know how good Lawrence is actually going to be, but as long as he's there, I know Evan Ingram's going to be good. He hyper fixates on him, so I'm very comfortable if Evan Ingram is my tight end in Dynasty. But let's jump to our next pick, guys, and that's going to be Cade Otton, Tampa Bay Buccaneer tight end. He kind of stepped up once Chris Godwin went down this season. He's 9th in targets among tight end. He was 12th in receptions among tight ends. He found a way to get in the end zone a little bit, but as long as we see Baker Mayfield playing the way he played this year, then I think there's value in Cade Otton. Now, I don't know how great it's going to be, but just given the tight end landscape, I think he deserves to be in the top 12 or at least have a discussion around that. But I think moving forward, we can expect him to maintain that role in this Tampa Bay offense.
Yeah, and like Matt said, you got to like Baker Mayfield being attached to Cade Otton with the way he played this season. Not to mention the offensive coordinator in Tampa, especially if he hangs around another year or two, then Cade Otton will be an even bigger factor. That moves me to number 12. Well, at number 12, we had a three-way tie. I'm going to break that tie, which for me is pretty easy, with Jason Ferguson. I'm a big Ferguson believer. Jake Ferguson, big Ferguson believer. Ferguson in 23 had 102 targets when he had Dak Prescott for an entire season. Like, that's significant. This year, early in the season, when he had Dak, he was hurt and missed a game or two. And then later in the season, Dak missed the second half of the season, which really brought his targets down significantly. So I do think there's a big factor to consider there when it comes to that with Ferguson. When you think back to 23, when he had 102 targets with Dak Prescott, a healthy Dak Prescott next season, that's his quarterback the entire time. I think you see Ferguson finishing in the top 10 when it comes to tight ends.
Yeah, I think, Coach, your argument stands. I'd expect Dak to be the quarterback next year, and we've seen Dak and Ferguson play well together. So I think that as long as they're paired, then there's going to be some value for the tight end that's playing in Dallas. But for our list, that's going to round it out, guys. We left off some names. We have Kyle Pitts out there, Dallas Goedert, Jonnu Smith, certainly some names to discuss. But let us know below who's in your top 12. What are you doing with these tight ends? It's going to be interesting to see how it unfolds when we add these rookies in, but we'll dive into that a little bit later. But thanks for tuning in. We'll catch you guys next time. Peace.